Our next speaker is Evan Applegate. Evan, are you with
I'm
us?
here.
Awesome.
Can you hear me? Excellent.
I can. And I met Evan online. I saw what he was doing on, I think it was LinkedIn, and I was just fascinated with it. And so I introduced myself and asked him if he would come talk. So Evan, I said, you don't have to have any great talk. Just tell us what you do. Tell us your story, and we'd love to hear about what you're doing.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. Oh, whoops, I got a privacy pop up.
Uh-oh. I think we lost him. Yeah, he dropped off. All right, we're going to give him a minute to come back.
You want me to jump in and we can swap slots?
Sure, we can do that.
He's back.
Oh, is he back? All right.
Okay, let's try this.
You there, Evan?
I am.
All right. That's great. I can see that. And any chance your camera's working?
No, that's busted. You'll have to deal with my dulcet tones.
All right.
Okay. Now, I don't pretend to have anything truly novel to share with the California Map Society. Everyone here is, seems to be deeply embedded in maps and their doings throughout history. So I'm just going to give a very parochial view from a practitioner. I make maps all day. That's what I do. And I'm not an engineer or scientific cartographer. I don't, I'm not a surveyor. I don't, nobody gets taxed or, they're not load bearing. The maps I make are cute. And so my focus has always been on aesthetic cartography. And as you guys who look at old maps all day can tell, old maps look great and modern maps look terrible, but it doesn't have to be thus. We can save cartography. I firmly believe that maps in the future can look as good as maps in the past. And just a little bit about my background. I've worked in editorial maps most of my career. I started in 2010 at Business Week, News Weekly in Manhattan. And that's where I started making maps. Everything from maps that showed where the news was happening to maps that explained things. I made maps about the biggest oil spills in the United States. I made a map for National Geographic about the range of some exotic wolf in British Columbia. And then on my own time, I make maps that look nice. And for instance, I made a map of my favorite plants in Los Angeles, the trees of the Tongass National Forest in Alaska. And then over here, a 4x6 foot collage of US Geological Survey topographic maps that I exhibited to the local people in my town, which was fun because you could see the Hudson River.
They're backlit, right?
Exactly. Yeah, these are illuminated. You stick them on the wall and plug them in and they glow. And they're printed on film at absurd resolution, maybe 100 microns. And so you can read 2-point type. And so my career has mostly been about, okay, the map's got to look nice. And you've of course have noticed that modern maps are woefully, deficient in that regard. But it wasn't always thus and needn't be in the future. And you can tell that by just, this is my explaining to me. People ask, when people tell me they have a map hanging in their house, I always ask, okay, when was the map made? And it was never made after 1985. That's just a universal. And you can always tell because a map made before 1985 was a work of craft and time and people who cared. Someone had to leave their house. Someone had to draw, someone had to measure, someone had to hike or sail, or even in the more recent 1960s case, they had to sit at a giant metal machine and scroll through aerial photos and, hand scribe where they saw buildings. And that changed with the advent of databases, where now all maps are made by one person using the computer on software that they kind of hate. And this is just the universal experience of anyone who makes maps for a living these days.
What are those softwares?
You can use, you probably are familiar with Esri's ArcMap.
Yep.
Which again, that they have 7,000 employees and can't make software worth a damn. And then there's open source alternatives like QGIS, which are free and extensible and useful.
Why do you like Esri?
Yeah. That's all the free tools are maintained by 7 Danish guys, and you better hope they're on your mailing list, because you're not going to fix things yourself. And all of these things on the left, all the sketching, drafting, scribing, engraving, nobody does it anymore, but these techniques are not lost. There is nothing that, no technique used to make the beautiful maps of the past are like Greek fire. Like, they are not, lost to the sands of time. They can be revived with enough cash, time, and patience. And to illustrate this, I'll walk you through my favorite map, one you might be familiar with, the 1739 Plan de Paris, where Michel Etienne Turgot, the provost of merchants of Paris, thought, I'm going to make the most flattering map of Paris that I can. And so he hired, what's that guy's name? Yeah, he hired Louis Bretet, a professor of perspective, to march around Paris and sketch every facade he could find. And then he hired the engraver to the Royal Academy of Sciences and his army of assistants to scratch all of what he saw into brass plates. And this took 4 years of work,
Wow.
untold man hours. And the final product was 21 brass plates that, which if you stuck them together, created a map that was 8 by 11 feet. It's enormous. I've never seen the whole thing stuck together. You can find a copy, a composite of this in the Rumsey collection. I have a link to it. And every inch of this map is beautiful. It's every single, thousands of trees scratched in by hand. Every single water line and lamppost rendered. And it's exquisite. And I thought, wow, there could be another one of these. Nothing about this was lost to time. I'm so obsessed with this map. I created a big illuminated reproduction and put it in my garage for the local townspeople to marvel at, which is fun.
How big is it?
This is a 4 by 6 foot. So it's a downscaled reproduction, but the film printing technique is so high resolution that you don't lose much. I handed people magnifying glasses and asked them to inspect it, and it holds up. And my favorite part about this map is that we can make another one of these with money. It doesn't take any vast archaeology or resources or magic technique. It will just take money.
When you say another one of these, you mean another one of Paris or another one of another city?
Anywhere. I would love to do one of, where you and I live. It would, and there's no lost technique. Like back then it was scratching a needle and a brass plate to scratch everything in. And today you can do it with copper plate. I use an example of Jake Coolidge, who was a National Park Service cartographer who undertook his own engraved map. He decided, I'm going to scratch Mount Rainier into copper, and he did. The tragic part is we have no one to learn from. There's no academy of map engraving you can go to. There's no one you can apprentice under, but these techniques are not lost. It just takes, most modern maps, all the really good ones are made by enthusiastic artists, illustrators, sculptors. And with the inducement of enthusiasm or with cash, we can revive engraved maps. And a more modest revival, I think, is hand-lettered maps. For example, here's a nice little key from an 1880 map where you can see the beautiful handwriting of one A.S. Barnes. And when I was making a map of the Tongass National Forest, I thought, man, I want to do a hand-lettered map, but I can't draw. So I found my favorite illustrator and asked him, can you letter a map for me? And he said, I've never done that before, but why not? And so I sent him a few hundred labels. He drew them himself. He scanned them, and then I placed them by hand all over this map. And this was something nobody could have taught me how to do. No one, where I learned cartography at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, there was no program and art directing hand lettered maps. But again, it just took money and time. And it turned out great. Like, I want to hire him to hand letter all my maps because they're.
And so sorry, and we should probably wrap up in a minute or so, Evan, but did you, so when you say these are hand lettered, it still is digital, but you've incorporated the hand lettering into that?
Correct. He drew, I gave him an Excel list of labels to write. He wrote them, he scanned them, and then I placed them digitally. So you're right. It is a combination of hand-drawn and digital techniques, the digital compositing. And let's see, do I have one more? Yeah, that's all I had to say. We can, if you know, you guys have an in with Rumsey probably. So if he has a spare million lying around, we can make a new Turgot map. It literally would just take time and money, and which is honestly the most heartening thing for me.
But why would it? I mean, but would it be like we're going back to brass or engraving of that, or is it going to be digital and similar in the way that it looks at the end of the day?
Oh, and I 100% believe you could do it engraving. There's plenty of, if you've ever looked for, all the engravers nowadays engrave watch cases and sporting shotguns, but all that expertise is still there. Those people have just never been introduced to map making before.
All right, we've got a couple of questions here. Hold on, let me get to the chat, but I can't, sorry guys. Okay, Nick.
I'm just curious how this map relates to that famous bird's eye view of Paris. You know, it's got the three dimensionals coming up at you. It looks like a similar technique.
Oh, which I'm not familiar with that one.
There's a bird's eye view of Paris and bird's eye view of London, and they both are looking as if you're, coming down from the sky, but the buildings are raised slightly.
You're not talking about Braun and Hogenberg.
I don't remember who did it, but it's probably more modern. It's not.
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
Drop it in the chat. I'd love to take a look.
Hey, Tom, can you turn off the share screen so we can see the gallery?
What are you looking for? You want to see my screen?
No, I see the people that they're on because I want to.
Oh, all right. Can you stop sharing your screen?
Yeah.
So Tom, and Evan, there was a map that Rumsey had in the center that was this digitized version of a map of Paris that you could actually almost jump into and walk around. That may be what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Nick, I'm not sure. It's like it was sort of in beta version when I was there a couple of years ago. So, and they were showing off some of their artificial intelligence or their virtual reality kind of stuff. So that may be what.
It's a little older than that because I had a print of it that I got 20 years ago. I don't have it anymore, but it just shows a kind of a school, like a bird flying down, but the buildings are raised up, kind of like the blown up images you showed.
Interesting.
If I can find it, I'll email you.
Awesome. All right. I think we're going to keep moving. Dan, do you want to? Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Evan. I really appreciate that. I know you've got a business as well. You put that into the chat, and
I'll drop it in.
You're selling things as well.